So I was just going to come on here and chat a little bit about the movie The Sound of Freedom and also relating it to childhood trauma. So, for those of you who don't know what the movie Sound of Freedom is about, it's based on a true story by Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. And the organization itself helps free children from trafficking, from sex trafficking in different parts of the world, and they also throughout the movie talk about the journey that Tim went on from working for the government and this government organization that went after pedophiles. But he realized that they were getting the pedophiles, but they weren't finding the kids. And so he had this mission where this father had two young kids. I forget where exactly he was living, but they were in a kind of a poorer country, and he was a single father, and this lady came and knocked on their door and said there was an opportunity for the kids to be involved in some sort of talent show or some sort of singing contest or something like that. And so the daughter really wanted to do it, and so the dad dropped the kids off at this one apartment, and he didn't realize that it was a trafficking ring, and the children got taken away. And it's about the journey of finding them, and basically he goes to like the ends of the earth to try to find these children. And it's really sad and heartbreaking to see kind of what really goes on in these trafficking rings and what happens to the children. And obviously they don't show anything, but it's just it really honestly puts things in perspective. And so I wanted to come on here and talk about my own journey, that I'm becoming a trauma-informed coach. And I'm learning a lot about childhood trauma and the impact of any sort of trauma on the nervous system, and how to kind of regulate and heal from that. And they talk about the big T and the little t. So the big T being big trauma, like something like what these kids had experienced in the movie, or any sort of sexual abuse, any sort of violence in the home. Those kind of things are usually considered big T. And then little t is small accumulations of emotional abuse and or neglect, and even things that may not be trauma to other people could be trauma to one person. But sometimes it's hard to when you think of oh, well, I'm not going through, I wasn't sold into slavery. I wasn't abducted as a child. I wasn't kidnapped. All of these horrific childhood traumas. You may think that, oh, I had a really good upbringing. I have had a really good childhood, so therefore I don't have any trauma from it. But that's not necessarily true. And I'm really learning about all of these different, what they call protector parts. So when you have a trauma, often as a child, we can't rationalize that it's not our fault. So we often internalize it. So for me, I'm actually really trying to unravel this specific childhood trauma for me. And it involved going to camp for the first time when I was little. And I got really, really homesick. And it was more than just homesickness for me. It it felt like a survival kind of program kicked in, and it was even if it wasn't traumatic, wouldn't have been traumatic to one child. It was a trauma to me, and the way that it was kind of handled, I ended up going home, and then I never really felt like I fully recovered from that, because I always felt like there was something wrong with me. And so that internal dialogue of like, there's something wrong with me, you're broken, um, it kind of stuck with me. And, I didn't want to go to sleepovers. I didn't want to be away from my parents. Even going away to college for the first time was challenging for me. I ended up doing it, but it was really hard for me to kind of be away from home. And so I've been kind of thinking about, like, in terms of, it's not as severe as some people. And it's like sometimes you think like, oh well, I'm not, I didn't have a rough upbringing. But it doesn't really matter. It matters how it impacted you. And these protector parts that come in to soothe you, to help you. Your brain is basically wired to stay away from danger. And anything that remotely resembles danger, it doesn't have to be something that's actually dangerous. It could be, I don't want to feel like I'm not good enough, or I don't want to feel like I'm broken, or um, I don't want to feel those feelings that I felt when I was at camp. So my brain, since that age, has kind of tried to create protector parts that will keep me away from that danger. So it's like avoiding certain situations, or trying to people please, and trying to and codependency, and gaining the love from another person by trying to be perfect, trying to be a perfectionist, and being successful, and showing my successes. And it's just been this kind of accumulation for me, till I've kind of gotten to this point in my life where I've realized that I've let these protector parts run my entire life. And it if you don't kind of recognize these patterns, sometimes it's really hard to be able to, like, heal them. First, you have to recognize them in order to heal them. So I've been really working and doing a lot of inner child work, and trying to kind of figure out where these parts of me were abandoned. And if you can imagine what kind of protector parts would come in for these children, like in this movie, in The Sound of Freedom. I think the movie itself, obviously, like, what they're going through is horrific, but they don't show like what happens afterward, and the level of care and trauma training that has to happen in order for these children to live a normal, happy life. And being taken away from parents, and sold into slavery, I could imagine, huge abandonment wounds, survival mechanisms, feeling like nobody's coming for them, like nobody's gonna save them. And feeling so neglected and broken, and traumatized from those situations. And I'm sure that the level of care that it takes to heal, to help a child heal from that is amazing, is tremendous. And so, like, I got into wanting to become a trauma informed coach, based on kind of what I've gone through in my life, with narcissistic abuse. And I've been through past relationships that were emotionally neglectful, and luckily, not physically harmful, but they were emotionally abusive, and very hard to recognize what was happening. There was a lot of gaslighting, so I didn't really understand that that it was them doing it. I thought it was my fault, and that protector part. So when I kind of I had all these unhealed wounds still, probably from some of this stuff from camp, and I was looking for outside of myself for somebody to look at me and think that I was good enough, because that was, my protector part of people pleasing and trying to be everything to everyone else and neglecting myself. And it's a really hard road to kind of go through, to be able to really look at yourself, to look at the wounds that you've had, and to recognize also that it may be the reasons why you're attracting abusive relationships, or you're attracting situations and jobs and in your life that are not necessarily beneficial for you, or you have addictions, or but it's not to say it's your fault. It's actually a part of you that, like, wants to keep you away from danger. So it thinks that, like, people that have addictions, it's not necessarily because they want to harm themselves. It's actually a part of themselves that feels like it's, to feel what they're feeling is more painful than to go through an addiction. And that's really kind of how trauma is formed. And I think that, in order to kind of like look at what's happening in the world right now, and why this movie is coming out, I think it's such a powerful message of the innocence and the children. And when we can heal our own childhood trauma, and we free ourselves from our own mental slavery and our own repetition of these patterns, and when we can actually look and see where we may be inflicting more trauma into the world, or repeating cycles that are perpetuating more trauma and more harm into the world, when we can actually look at these things and heal them, I think that it makes the world a better place, and it can really help, heal all of these parts of the world that are so broken. They really say that in order to heal, you have to look at it. And I think that's really what's happening, like on a microcosm and a macrocosm. And unfortunately, some people don't want to look at it. And I understand that. I understand that it feels like sometimes when you're looking at something that's horrific, it's perpetuating it. But in a sense, it's more like it's shining light into the darkness. And when we shine light into the darkness, whether it's looking at um, looking at child trafficking, understanding what's actually and how much of a massive deal this is, and how this has continued in the world, and partly because people don't want to look at it, and it is really hard. It is really hard to look at. Even watching the movie, I teared up a lot, and um, picturing children that I know in my life, or it's really really hard to like think about something like that happening, and um, and then I also picture my own inner child. I feel like there are parts of myself that like I've abandoned, and I feel like are stuck in that past and need to be rescued. And I think that's really what's going on a big scale right now, is that unfortunately, in order to heal, we have to see it. We have to see it to heal it. And there is no escaping even some of the stuff that's like that we don't like about ourselves. The shame, the neglect that our inner child is feeling. I feel like this is really, we have to dive in deep to these parts of ourselves that we don't love, that we feel abandoned, and that we feel like our parents never gave us, and we have to like reparent ourselves. Because I think the reason the world is so broken is because these patterns keep getting passed down by generations, and their parents didn't know any better, so they created the trauma in our parents. And even it's different with different siblings. We could have one child grow up in a household, and I wouldn't say that anyone has no trauma. Like I think that I think everyone has some level of trauma, but something could be more traumatic to one child than another, and it can really be hard to like understand and to unravel, and to change the patterns, because we may just not know any better. And I think that in order to heal, we really need to like look at these parts of ourselves. So there's some techniques that I would suggest. EFT tapping is my number one, my go-to. And maybe I'll do a little tapping at the end of the video, because I think in order to really like understand this and to really process this, especially like with this movie, The Sound of Freedom, coming out, I think it would be really important to really kind of get in touch with our own inner childs and our own inner traumas, and to really kind of look at that and heal it. So EFT tapping is my number one to really work on, to be able to heal from this. I also feel like anything somatic, whether it's kind of doing any sort of like meditation, but also working on somatic, meaning like actually like physically like moving your body as well. Because I think that inner child work is great, but I think there's also a somatic component that we need to actually move our bodies, and in order to kind of like get the trauma out. So I really think that kind of going into the feelings, like feeling where you're feeling the trauma in your own body and like releasing it, that's also really good. I think I've actually been looking into modalities like EMDR and different type of modalities like that. And I think that that can be really helpful as well. Um, and I think that neglecting like any avenue, like I feel like for so long, like I've been so resistant to any like sort of like help from like Western medicine and stuff. And if you really are dealing with anxiety and dealing with depression and dealing with it, and you've tried all of these different avenues and you've tried everything, I'm kind of at this point where I really do see that if you can lessen um, that feeling just by a little bit in order to like benefit your life, I think that you should, try everything possible that you can to be able to help yourself, because I really don't think that um, it is beneficial to stay stuck in such an anxious, um, depressed state in order to feel like you have to do it on your own with spirituality. And or I do think there is excavating, and there's all of this like going into all of this stuff, but I also think that it is important to really understand that you don't have to white knuckle it all the time. And I'm kind of at this point in my life where I realize like I'm getting, I'm using the tools that I have, and I'm getting like all of the help that I can to be able to feel like better in myself. And I think for me, I've lived in anxiety for so long, and I kind of wanted to like share this with others, because I don't want you to feel alone or feel like, oh, she's doing these tapping, she's doing all this stuff, and it's like that's just like working for her and stuff like that. And it does help. It does help for sure. But I feel like there's so like I'm having some health issues as along with my that kind of flare up with my anxiety now. And I've kind of just like reached this point where I'm like I need help. Like I need more help than all of these like modalities and stuff can give me. And so I'm kind of looking at all the different avenues and stuff to be able to like to really like bring my well-being back to as as much as I can, like into wholeness. And if one of those things is, I've been white knuckling anxiety my entire life, and I feel like it's held me back from so much in my life. And I've avoided different situations that I could have taken job opportunities or taken or gone places or done things. And I really just want to be able to break free a little bit, just a little bit from all of that fear in order to start living my life without such fear and without such anxiety. And yeah, I'm just, I'm trying every avenue I can. And, in order to kind of like be a trauma informed coach, I think I have to try everything. I have to try to regulate my nervous system in any way possible, and to really work on myself and get myself to and it's the perfectionism is one of the protector parts that I have. I'm not trying to be perfect, because I know that that's something that has held me back from actually doing the thing that I want to do. So I'm actually letting go of that a little bit. But in order to do that, I think the anxiety that has crippled me in making decisions in starting things in my life. And I think that I have to really, really like be able to tackle it, and I'm doing everything possible to do that right now. And so yeah, so I don't know. I just wanted to kind of come on here. I hope I shared some good points about that. Anyone who's interested in going to see the movie, I think it's available this week, and then next week. I'm not sure if it's still in theaters, but it is a really great movie. I highly recommend it. Definitely bring tissues. It's very sad. It's not, I think a lot of people don't want to go because they're like, oh, I don't want to go and just cry the whole time. And it is very sad, but it's more of like, sometimes it's the logistics of like how they do the operation. And I think, some of it is actually really fascinating. And it is a tearjerker story, but like it's very powerful. And I found, I'm really sensitive to stuff, and I found myself like, tearing up, but I didn't really like, bawl my eyes out like I thought I would. So it's really great. And, I think that inner child healing, no matter what you've gone through, is really, really important in these times, is reparenting yourself. And I find myself, when I'm being hard on myself, when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm feeling like this, or when I feel like, I try to talk to myself like I would a child and say like what's going on, honey? Like how are you feeling? And my inner child might be like, oh, I'm not feeling blah blah blah, and like she might tell me like what's going on, and I just kind of try to nurture myself and try to like talk to myself like I would a child. Because if we really think about it, like we're probably really hard on ourselves as adults, and we still have those neglected in our child that, think of it as the children in that movie. Like think of like your inner child as like that child, like that, like you would do anything to rescue a child like that, and to find them, and to heal them, and to bring them to wholeness. And why not do that for yourself? And so I think that's really important. I think, being loving to yourself, being kind to yourself is really important in these times. And yeah, I think, as I'm kind of like, getting my coaching up and running and stuff, like I am going to be working with more people, and being trauma informed. So I'm actually working on my certification right now. And I have a couple of case studies to go, but I'm really hoping, maybe by fall and stuff to be able to start maybe taking some clients and stuff. I'm working on my own, health issues and stuff right now. So it has been very challenging and back and forth, because I have good days and bad days, but I am really working on, getting my coaching to the place that I want to be. So I will let you know once I start taking on some clients, and I wanna finish the certification first. But yeah, I'm definitely working on that. So alrighty, well, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys later. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you guys.